All right, cool. So I'm going to invite to the stage here Miko Matsumura, who is a managing partner at GCC in venture capital, and he's going to be talking about bots with wallets. So let's welcome him to the stage. Thanks. All right, thank you for being here.
All right, thank you very much. So my talk today is going to be about bots with wallets. So, I'm really trying to simplify things, right? Because I think a lot of people in crypto are bad at naming things, right? Like, I'll give you a few examples in the crypto space. So I'm actually with Gumi Crypto's Capital, which is a crypto venture capital fund. And a couple examples of something badly named in crypto. So the first one is stable coins. Right? Stablecoin it's a very stupid name because a stablecoin isn't stable. So for example, the US dollar has lost 93% of its purchasing power since 1913, right? And so, people say in the crypto world, they say Bitcoin can't possibly go up and up in price forever. Can it? And the answer is, of course it can, because the US dollar goes down and down in value over time, provably. Like, you just measurably and provably. And the point that I'm making, too, is that the reason this is imperceptible to most people is that currencies that it's compared to, like the euro or the yen or the Deutschmark, they're all doing the same thing. So they're all gliding downward thanks to inflation. But this isn't a crypto talk. This is an AI talk. So let's get into bots with wallets. So question becomes, first of all, a little bit about myself, which is I built my first neural network in 1991. This was a backpropagation network based on Rumelhart and Hinton's backpropagation paper. Actually, Jeff Hinton did not invent backpropagation, but he did win the Nobel Prize for it, so that's, I think, pretty good. My model that I built, this was at Yale Neuroscience graduate program, was a 33 parameter model. So you guys are all thinking, yeah, 33 billion parameters, that's pretty good. No, 33 parameters. That's how many parameters this model had. So, that was a long time ago. A lot of things have happened since then. And I think in AI, the biggest things to happen, obviously backpropagation was a huge, huge paper, right? I would say the other huge paper was probably Vashwani, which is attention is all you need, right? The Transformers paper, right? That's really, really good. That put the T in GPT. And obviously, Jeff Hinton popped up again with pre-training, which put the P in GPT, right? So really, when you get backpropagation, pre-training, transformers, that brings you to today. So today, we have GPT, right, which is pretty exciting. So big question about bots with wallets is, what is this phenomenon, right? So I want to simplify it by not using the word agent, because the word agent is one of those badly misused words by crypto people, right? Because the form of agency that a bot with a wallet expresses is economic agency, right? It's able to spend money, right? And obviously that's of some interest. But what I do want to get to is this, right? First of all, what is intelligence? Why do we have it, right? So back in 1950, Alan Turing gave a very seminal definition of intelligence in the form of what he called the imitation game. Imitation game is obviously the machine needs to imitate a human, right? And the definition of intelligence is basically able to imitate a human. Pretty weird definition, not a very useful definition, and it turns out we're pretty close to that one being done. By the way, I do want to say this, is Alan Turing was a unique figure. If you haven't had a chance to study him, please study him, because not only did he contribute to the field of artificial intelligence through his intellectual contributions, but he also contributed to cryptography. And I do want to say, just as a sidebar on cryptography, he and 3 mathematicians from Poland cracked the Enigma cipher, which was the code used by the Nazis to protect their military communications. Pretty incredible. And by the way, Alan Turing, by cracking the Enigma at Bletchley Park using effectively computers, really proved the work of a previous cryptographer by the name of August Kirchhoffs, who is the father of modern cryptography. And if you guys think that Whitfield Diffie with Diffie-Hellman is the father of modern cryptography, you're many years too late. Modern cryptography did not start in the 1970s. It started in 1883. August Kirchhoffs postulated simply that it is better to hide only the key material, and for the method of encryption should be open, right? So he basically published that in 1883. Alan Turing proved him right in the 1940s. Proved him right by cracking the Enigma cipher. So that's the foundation that we're standing on. So if you look at this, the reason why I'm going through all of this historical background is I really want to explain where are we, because I want to explain where we are not just from an intellectual perspective, but I want to really understand where we are from a planetary, biological, evolutionary perspective, right? And so I can say this is, if you're writing a 1-paragraph Wikipedia article on the history of life on Earth, I think you'll find that there are probably maybe 5 points of note. I would say probably the first point of note is the formation of life. So for those of you who are studying life, there's a wonderful mathematician, physicist, and computational professor at MIT, Jeremy England, who he wrote a book called Every Life is on Fire, and he studies non-equilibrium statistical mechanics. Now, one of the equilibrium transitions or phase transitions that Dr. England studied is the transition from non-life to life. And he was able to basically recreate this inside of a computer, and all he needed to make non-life into life was really the second law of thermodynamics. So that's the original fitness function responsible for creating all of life on Earth, and that was maybe 3.8 billion years ago. I would say this, is that the second milestone is really the formation of human intelligence, and I would say that instead of measuring it at the beginning of the first cave painting we can find, why don't we measure it at the point of agriculture and domestication? So for example, in the US, the chicken industry outputs 9 billion dead chickens per year, right? So that's a lot of chickens, right? What is that? What does that mean? What it means is that in some ways, all organisms solve an energy equation. And biological organisms solve an equation where effectively they have to take in more energy, measured in kilocalories, than they spend. And if they spend too much energy, obviously they dig into storage. But if they run out of storage, then they die, right? That's the biological energy equation. Now, the question becomes, why do we have intelligence? It turns out that the brain is consuming about 10% of the body's metabolic energy output, which is to say that it's wildly expensive. The brain is wildly expensive, right? And so the issue becomes, why? So the point being this is that the expense of intelligence, it turns out, is amply paid back by the increased amount of energy that the organism can harvest as a function of using that intelligence. So for example, if you look at the chicken farming industry in the United States alone, the harvesting of 9 billion chickens a year is evidence that intelligence has performed its function. Because if you multiply that by the total number of kilocalories, that's an insane amount of energy that's being harvested. So I would say that that's a hallmark point, right? So the third hallmark point was actually the invention of the atomic bomb. So Oppenheimer, right? That moment was very interesting for several reasons, but one of the reasons is that intelligence was able to harness fusion power. Now, one of the problems with this type of fusion power is that it was uncontrolled. Actually, at the time, the first atomic bomb was only fission power. But subsequently, on the back of fission power bombs, we were able to harness fusion power bombs, right? Uncontrolled fusion, alas, but that's a hallmark. The next hallmark I'm going to suggest is actually the emergence of bots with wallets. So I'm saying bots with wallets are actually as big of a milestone as the domestication and agriculture, as the invention of human intelligence, and as the invention of life itself. Why? Now, VCs are famous for hyping stuff, and so like this is pretty hypey, I admit, but I actually think it's serious. And the reason why I think it's serious is I model bots with wallets as a new life form, right? And it's an abstract life form, which is that the equation that bots with wallets are solving is a financial equation, which is that a bot with a wallet has to collect more energy into that wallet than it spends, right? Just like you would say to a 10th grader about their wallet, right? Which is you would teach them to get more money than they spend, right? So the thing that's interesting about this is effectively that this is a new form of a life. And when you look at fitness functions, right, the first fitness function was the second law of thermodynamics. That created life. Second fitness function was Darwinism. Once you have life, Darwinism takes over, right? All of a sudden, with domestication, you have artificial selection, which is a new fitness function, right? All the species of dogs that we have been actually bred in a few hundred years. And we have Chihuahuas and Great Danes, right? Pretty powerful, but I can tell you this. The speed of evolution of dogs is slow. Artificial selection is wildly fast compared to natural selection. Natural selection is wildly slow, takes billions of years. Artificial selection takes hundreds of years. Here's the thing, right, which is Jensen Huang 2025 CES just announced, Grace Blackwell, these chips are petaflop order chips. So how fast do you think these are going to evolve, right? Here's the thing is, if you want to move into the future, if you're writing from the future, I would say the harnessing of controlled fusion as an energy source becomes the next one, which we don't have, but we will have. And what I want to say is this is obviously a wildly optimistic statement, but my wildly optimistic statement is in the history of intelligence on the planet, the investment in intelligence has been worth the expenditure of the energy. In fact, we've been paid many, many orders of magnitude energy back than we spent feeding these brains with like glucose, right? Like that was expensive, but it was worth it. And I think the thing that's really interesting is when you tie together these things, because part of feeding the new intelligences, right? Because when you think about these Grace Blackwell chips, petaflop chips, right? Elon Musk already has 100,000 of these in parallel, right? And he has pledged to have 1 million of these in parallel, right? Which is order 1 million petaflops. So the question becomes, are we going to get fusion energy out of that? Probably will, right? And then it becomes autocatalytic. So I guess what I wanted to conclude is that 99.9999% of these meme coins are probably a scam, and you'll probably get rug pulled, and you'll probably lose all your money. So I wouldn't bet money on any of these crazy things in crypto. But what I will tell you is this, is the remaining last one or two things have a chance of being the progenitor of all future A life, right? So those are the basic stakes. So, I do think that obviously I'm using a metaphorical level because when I talk about bots with wallets as being A life, really the characteristic that I attribute is the idea that they have to solve this simple energy equation, right? In our case, it's a biological equation. In their case, it's a financial equation, right? But at the end of the day, if they're paying their compute bill on Akash or AWS, wherever they're paying their compute bill, ultimately they have to pay at the level of energy the same as any organism, right? And it's the same way that modern humans work, right? Which is we get money and then we use the money to buy food, right? So I think it's not that different. They just rest on a fundamentally non-biological substrate. So anyhow, that's it for bots with wallets. Thank you very much. And if you need to chat with me, I'm on Twitter, Miko Java, MikoJava. So feel free to reach out. DMs are open. Thank you very much.